And welcome back to Black Renaissance. Here with me is Tonda Case. She's here to talk about the first ever Jews of Color convening. It happened in New York just in May. And what an amazing event. First of all, why was it significant to get this started now?
I want to thank you for having me on the show. It was significant because in the wake of all of the things that have happened culturally, in the way that we have processed race and oppression in America, we didn't have, actually what we saw was there was a mirror held up to the Jewish community that said, you're looking at us, we're here, we're present, and just because our numbers are not statistically significant, it doesn't mean that we should not be at the table. And so what we found was little pockets in little communities where Jews of color, we were living and making community and having fellowship, but there was a sense when you would go into the larger Jewish community that we were absent. There'd maybe be one Jew of color in the room, maybe two Jews of color. And I guess throughout the entire country, people were beginning to question that and question the larger Jewish community as to why are we not at the table when you build the table? Mm-hmm. Why are we being added in, if at all, to the conversation after the fact? And so as this conversation grew, and it seemed to take on a life of its own. There were a couple of organizations out of New York. One of them was the Jewish Multiracial Network, and another one is JFREJ, that's Jews for Racial and Economic Justice. And they came together and said, we need to convene. We need to gather our folks because names are popping up. Have you met this person? Do you know this person? Are you working in this community? Do you know an organization that's headed by Jews of color that's working to integrate and working to bring our levels of intersectionality to the fore? And we found this incredible network, and we started to work together, but they were the ones that came together along with another organization called Bend the Arc, which is a progressive Jewish organization. And they also had sponsorship by the Ford Foundation and I think the Covenant Foundation. And it was held at Simchat Beit Torah, a congregation in New York City. And it all worked to come together to build this incredible convening where we even had Jews from Canada to come and join in.
Fantastic.
It was amazing.
It sounds like a lot of different organizations working together, yes. And not just looking at at Jews of color, looking at the Jewish community, multiculturalism, and then also social justice as well.
Absolutely, and the social justice component is huge. Jewish law and tenet, one of the major tenets of Judaism is healing the world and repairing the world. And in an effort to do that, you cannot bring yourself to your work without bringing a sense of justice and without working against oppression wherever it comes. And it's not just that your organization has to be geared towards that work, it's in your everyday life. And so the idea is to re-engage Jews, in particular Jews of color, because when you are the only one and you feel like a lone warrior doing that work, it weighs on you. It's a thing. And people may love you and you may be well accepted, but it's a thing that you carry. And so in order for us to find a way to shore up and keep love, that was one of the things that came up over and over and over again. That love was no longer a part of the mission statement. It was no longer a part of the strategic plan, and that we were really suffering. That Jews of color were really suffering and struggling with the idea that we're here doing this work alone. And the beauty of it is that I found, and we all found, beloved community, we're not doing this work alone. So when we go to mainstream Jewish organizations, we come as a powerful force that's building community and working together and building a cultural and social justice plan that we can roll out across the country and in effect really serve as a beacon of hope in many ways for the nation, that this is a way. It's not just about opening up the existing organizations and pulling out the chair and saying, come sit at the table with us. It really is about picking up that table, moving it out the way. and starting anew.
Starting all over again.
Starting all over again.
It sounds amazing. That sense of belonging is so important.
Yes.
Tell me what you see just very quickly here coming up in the future for Jews of Color and for this convening.
I see more of the same. I see us coming together from our respective jobs and careers and bringing a wealth of knowledge that our people who work in development, that are people who are business strategists, that are people who are leaders in organizations, that they come and they teach us how to be. Another thing is that we begin to network more across the country. For example, I had the opportunity to join the board of Jews in All Hues, and that's an organization that's in Philadelphia, and it's from this convening and from my work with Ben the Ark and from leadership training in the Jewish community.
Making those connections is so important. It sounds like you guys have taken a huge step toward doing that with this convening. Congratulations on that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
For more information about Jews of Color Convening, log on to jocconvening.org. That's jocconvening.org. And we'll be right back with more Black Renaissance right after this.